Welcome back to another episode of the Red Pill Cartel podcast. Two very special guests here from the mighty band Glueleg, legendary in my eyes. Christian Simpson and Carlos Alonso. How are you guys?
Well, how
Doing
are you
well.
guys?
Good to be here, man. Nice to meet you.
You too,
Yeah,
guys. It's
pleasure.
it's it's a fucking pleasure, and I've been a fan for so long since I was in high school. So it's very surreal for me to actually talk to you guys.
No, very cool. Well, pleasure to speak with you as well, and thank you for having us on.
That's awesome. So the funny thing is that I reached out to you guys back like a couple years ago when you started working on Horror Vakui, and I was like, "Oh my God, Glueleg's coming back!" And then I talked to you guys. I don't know if it was you, Christian, or Carlos, but I was like, "Where's Ruben?" And you guys were like, "I have no idea." He kind of dropped off the face of the earth, right? And then
Well, apparently
I
he wasn't,
yeah, and now he's back with his
right?
band Star Beast, and I connected
Ah,
with him and got to go meet them when they played and had them on, and now I got you guys right after, so the timing is pretty fucking wild.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Right on.
Um,
Funny how that happens.
yeah, it
Birds of a
was
feather.
totally crazy in my own little bubble, it was pretty wild. But let's go to talk a little bit about the history of Glueleg and how they formed back in what was it, 89, 90, maybe?
Yeah. Well, Chris, jump in at any point, but
Well, you go back to '89 with the band. I didn't, so I'm
yeah,
going
that's
to
right. You were a
defer
couple of years
to
later.
you on the Genesis story.
Right. So the beginnings of the band were, yes, 1989. It was our last year in high school. And my two closest friends, who were Ruben Haisenga and a fellow named Blake Howard, who was our first drummer, and he was on the first recording that we did. We were in a band called Subject to Change, and we were the going concern in the high school that we were at, up around the Alliston area, kind of rural Ontario, playing all the field parties and beginning to play with a 4-track recorder. Certainly big fans of some Toronto bands, particularly Rush. We were really, honing ourselves to turn into this sort of power prog trio.
Sounds
Um,
about right.
and uh, and yeah, and then what really kicked us in the ass as far as really wanting to, decide to commit to this kind of energy um, and creative outlet was, I think, actually it was two shows. One of them was going to see Jane's Addiction at Massey Hall in 1989, maybe 90. They were just coming in, and it was just the most energetic, cool. It was the beginning of, okay, this isn't the 80s anymore, right? It was
Yeah.
proper rock and roll, but next level. And certainly we were listening to, bands like Faith No More that we were just dreaming of them coming up, but they were a bit beyond what we were capable of that at that
Yeah,
point.
they're one of my favorite bands as well.
All right, on, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so after playing lots of gigs and particularly parties, but then that evolved into some downtown venues like Sneaky D's and Lee's Palace on a Monday night, the El Macombo. And then continuing to write music, but continuing to kind of evolve our sound. And then we had another show that was certainly for me a big eye opener and a tremendous inspiration. And that was Primus, and that was
Oh,
1991, their first time at Lee's Palace, and it just brought it all together. Really,
for sure. Yeah.
that whole 90 or 70s kind of prog rock, and that seed of Rush, and then what they were doing, and kind of that really kicked us in the ass as far as going, okay, so I think we have a sense of which way we're going to go with this. And it made some changes happen, particularly for me. I went from, after seeing Les Claypool playing that bass and being a bass player and going, okay, well, I'm not doing that anymore because he's done it. It was just so good.
Is this where the Chapman stick came into play?
This was right around that time I really started getting clever. And that was also right around the time that Blake, the drummer, he was having some other interests in another band that he was in with Ruben, actually. They were called Guh. They're still around, actually. And so we started taking some auditions, and that's when Chris came into the fold. We auditioned 5, 6 guys, and Chris was head and shoulders above all of them as far as his musicality and particularly his breadth of musical knowledge. And it wasn't until he was in the band that he put me onto a whole bunch of King Crimson albums, the ones that are still my favorite ones, these three from the late 70s, early 80s, that I really made that decision that, okay, this is the instrument for me. And I think right around that time, so with Chris coming in, we had one recording out, a cassette, but we were really beginning to find what our actual sound was in instrumentation. So when Chris came in and the Chapman stick came in, I think that's where it really turned into something like the Glueleg that we know now.
Right. Like Heroic. Was it Angst that was first and then Park Alien?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Heroic Doses.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's when I saw Heroic Doses on Much Music, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
Hey, did we actually play Heroic Doses on Much Music? I don't remember because there's no video of it.
I saw the video played, but not you guys playing live. Yeah.
Somebody said we did perform that. I don't recall that. I know we played Pistons and we played on there 2 or 3 times.
We were on there like 3 or 4 times though. So
yeah, somebody said, "Oh no, you guys did one where you played Heroic Doses." I don't remember that. If I'd love to see that. If
I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah.
But seeing the video for the first time and I was getting into this is like 13, 14-year-old Dave talking, Mr. Bungle and Faith No More at the same time, and also more proggy stuff. And I was always into Rush growing up because my older brother that was his favorite band. And so I was always into prog stuff. And then when I found Glueleg, Heroic Doses, I'm like, okay, this is fucking crazy. This is good shit. So I've been following you guys ever since.
Right on, man. Thank you.
It's wild. And Clodhopper was like when I was graduating high school. So that was like my jam, like just ending high school,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just like the growth of the band was phenomenal. Like it seemed like Clodhopper was like the pinnacle for you guys, but then I guess shit just ended up falling apart.
Yeah, it was a time. So we had signed a deal with EMI, Liquid Records EMI. So it wasn't sort of a full-fledged major record deal that we had signed. And I remember when I think it was Clodhopper was just being released and Pistons was the first single. EMI at that time, if I'm not mistaken, was releasing, New I Mother Earth, New Tea Party, New O'Connell Thrush, I think, Tom Cochrane. So, I mean, all the resources were kind of going to support those bands. We were, kind of on the, they liked the band, but I don't think they knew really what to do with us. It was certainly a harder fit than some of the other bands that they were putting out at that time that were doing pretty significant numbers back then. In the Canadian, like those were the big Canadian bands of the day, and we were up against them, and we just didn't get the radio spots, and so I kind of understand why, because our sound also was it was quite different, a bit of a challenge. Yeah, I think one of my best, how I can kind of relate this is we did a battle of the bands for it was 97.7.
Yeah. Kim Mitchell was
Kim Mitchell was one of the judges, and some of the Much Music people, and it was kind of a big deal. And they had 6 different bands, and everybody played, and we ended up winning it. And the prize was you got a song added to their it was like medium rotation or something like that.
Okay.
And so we won that, and well, oh great, so we're going to get an ad on 97.7. And then but we found out they can't add it because they have this policy where they don't play horn bands.
Oh my
Oh,
God. I think I heard this story somewhere.
yeah.
I think you were telling it on Canadian as fuck.
I was on another podcast and I remember telling this story, but yeah, I remember that our manager was just saying, yeah, they're not going to add you because you have, even though it was the track was Heroic Doses, right, which was getting it was on CFNY and radio stations across the country, and much music was playing it quite a bit, and but this station just would not, sorry, we don't, it's not like we're Chicago or
Yeah. It's not like you're like easy listening or adult contemporary or some shit, right?
horn bands. Yeah, okay, don't play Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and but we're not that. So anyway, so that so that's sort of an indication of the challenges that we sort of faced with mainstream radio in this country.
Yeah, and that's the thing I loved about Glueleg too is, excuse me,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
the hard edge, but with the horns in it. It was just so full sounding and completely different than anything out there at the time.
And to be fair, this is what we were seriously intending. We weren't just necessarily mashing ideas together. We were conscious of what we were doing, but we weren't considering it through the lens of how it was going to make a living for us. Certainly
Yeah.
not through things like radio and some of the things that, requirements that they have. Those, that seemed all news to us. Oh, what? And I guess it makes sense I remember thinking back then, or us talking about it, that, well, I guess so. It's like a classic rock radio station, an alternative, and we're kind of in there because of the guitars, but then it doesn't sound really anything like that. And I guess it's just enough of that, to knock us off.
It's retarded in my eyes because like the Tea Party had this Middle Eastern thing going on. And it's for some reason they push them, right? So I don't know. It's kind of weird.
But Zeppelin was doing that, paved the way for that, I guess. And as far as Tea Party, I think can move at that time. I think they could move between being on a more of an alternative channel like CFMY or whatever it's called now, The Edge, and Q107. Like they could fit into both categories.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever got a spin on Q107. We just didn't sound like a classic rock band.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I can kind of compare Glueleg with I Mother Earth because, well, you guys were always doing your thing, but I Mother Earth also created this prog masterpiece called the Quicksilver Meat Train, and it got pretty good play, I guess, and success, but again, it was like their pinnacle, and then boom, they were gone.
Is that right? That's the pinnacle for you? For
me, yeah. Because I don't get me wrong, I loved Edwin, and I love both Edwin and Brian Byrne, but when Blue Green Orange came out, I was like, this is great, right? But then when the Quicksilver Meat Dream came out, I bought it the first day it came out, and I played it and played it and played it and played it, and there's always something new to pick out because it was so progressive. And those are my favorite kinds of albums where I can listen to it over and over and over again, and then keep picking out stuff instrumentally, and just like completely fall in love with it. Right. The same thing with Claude Hopper. It was every song was different. It was so good, and then it was like, boom, they're gone. It's weird. It's like the radio doesn't seem to prefer progressive music, and I don't know why that is. Tool got lucky, I guess. But I just don't get. I guess there's different factors in the bands as well that happen too as well, but I don't know.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot that goes into what it makes something sustainable, what makes something resonate. And on one side of it certainly is making a living off of it. How can that make money back for you? And in the 90s, being on the radio was a really big part of that. As a matter of fact, if you didn't have that, there wasn't really much reason to go on the road, which is a really sad state of affairs. And I
Yeah.
think Chris, we can, speaking for everybody in the band at that time, that, it was many years of us being on the road and touring, and at the point that, we didn't have other jobs because this is all we were doing. So that became a critical element that had to happen. And what we arrived at discovering was one of our significant strengths, our real creative uniqueness, was actually something that was being presented to us was working against us.
Mm-hmm.
And then that ultimately created, I think, some pretty sad divisions in the band, right? So personalities in pushing and pulling in around how to massage that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Or mitigate it anyway. And then I think maybe to answer your question, that's kind of so that can lead to the falling apart of the creative and
Dissension, yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's
Sucks,
part of
man.
being in a band, really. I mean, can you name one that hasn't gone through these, hurdles and
Oh, for sure, yeah.
just politics.
And we're back now, so
Yeah.
that's
And
good.
that's the thing too. It's like, oh my God, Glueleg's got a new album, and it doesn't sound anything like their old stuff, but that's okay because their old stuff didn't sound like anything else like their old stuff anyway. So to me, that's how what Glueleg is all about. It's just about doing whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah, thanks for seeing that, hearing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just pushing ourselves. Like I consider us both, Carlos and I definitely, I would say we're artists we're not just guys that want to be in a band and kind of rock out, which is great, but that doesn't interest me. I look to pushing myself a little more, and
Sure.
and I think prog is it, when people say, oh, the prog rock, you guys were so proggy. I don't even hear it really as prog now. And I didn't really think it was bad. Of course it was different than most of the stuff that you would hear. But and it's just it's one of the it's a negative term, and I don't know why. But like I grew up listening to prog rock bands. I love prog rock bands. The classic bands. I don't know a lot of really new ones that I really like, but I love. One of my favorite bands is the Smiths, and I was listening to one of my favorite bands is Husker Du. One of my favorite bands is No Means No. I was listening to them for 2 hours today on my drive. So I like all kinds of different stuff. So it's not it's not like we're a prog rock band. I think we're kind of open to everything.
Yeah.
I think you can hear stuff too. It's not okay. We need to just do more complicated, and like there's really not. I know there's one song in 7, 8. Other than that, I think everything's in 4. It's not
we're doing
rock going on.
Ennio Morricone song, which is Italian film music from the 60s. I'm not sure how progressive that is.
Yeah, but we are progressive at the same time. We are, and I'm not afraid. It's not something to kind of shy away from because we love those bands. We're huge Rush fans.
Yeah.
What Canadian boys growing up in the 70s and 80s weren't, you know what I mean? Especially if you're a musician, those were the guys, right? Those,
of course, yeah. The holy trinity of rock right there, right?
Yeah. So it was when their albums were released. I remember when, I'm older than you guys. And I remember, like you said, your older brother, got you into Rush, or a huge Rush fan. One of my friends back in the day, his brother was a big Rush fan, and he would always have their new record. And I remember, when Hemispheres came out, it was, okay, my brother's gone out of the house. Everybody get it, because you weren't allowed to play it if he was there, right? He'd lose his mind. So we were sneaking it, but a whole group of us would get together, and it was just like it was an event. Drop the needle on it, and everybody would sit back and just listen. And the whole album. And then it'd be, put it on again.
Yeah,
Yeah, did you hear that? Did you hear that, Phil? It was just like we were all just riveted and blown away by what we were hearing. They had these big speakers. It was this massive stereo. It was just music's not like that. You don't hear it that way anymore, and it's
yeah,
not as special. Like I'm telling you, man, it was exciting. Like, get your ass over here. My brother just got the new Hensters, or my sister, I remember getting Physical Graffiti. I just saw the album cover and I'm looking at it like, what is this? And put it on.
yeah.
It's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
40, 50 years later, I'm still listening to it. I just bought a vinyl copy, because it's been, remixed and mastered. And of course I have to have the latest Physical
Of
Graffiti.
course, yeah.
I've got 4 copies of it from
I
over
do the same thing with my favorite albums,
a
man.
decade.
And
Yeah.
and another thing about vinyl too, back in the day, was like getting that vinyl, getting your hands on it, and looking through the artwork and the lyric sheets, and like there's nothing like it. Even the smell,
Yeah. Yeah.
Even CDs too, the same thing. I'd open up that CD case, the jewel case, take the booklet out and go open it up in the right through the middle, go, there it is.
You were invested right in it, right? You open
I'll
that,
take
nothing else
this
was going.
opportunity to
Yes.
Yeah.
all
The
of
horror.
thing literally was one of the layers of Chris and I getting back together and going, let's make a record, but let's make a record, an actual
Absolutely.
vinyl.
Yeah.
So that's a good segue into Horror Vakui then. So I guess, Carlos, was it you that spawned this whole thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the Glueleg part, yes. So
You've been doing a lot of solo stuff before this.
yeah, so I spent and so just a quick backstory on that motivation, and I think it's good to give props to where the inspiration comes from. So the record producer and recording engineer who did Heroic Doses and Park Alien, actually finished Park Alien for us, his name is James Stewart, the cousin of Jamie Stewart, the bassist from The Cult.
Oh shit.
So in 2016, I was doing a solo record. I spent many years playing classical guitar and doing these, gigs in bistros and stuff. And that kind of evolved into a solo record. And I contacted James, who was still a close friend of mine, in 2016 to help me put this together, given that we'd had this history with the Glueleg stuff. And we worked very diligently on it. And then he got sick about a month before we were done, and he passed away. And that kind of hit me right in the ass, to be like, okay, so not only does this need to have some life breathed into it, to honor James, but I think this idea of making music has some weight, and I should put some energy and gravity towards that. Thinking about him and anyway, so that evolved to 3 more records, and honestly, all along the way, I'd worked with a variety of other musicians, but had always been in touch with Chris, but thinking about and knowing particularly his musicality and his drumming, and I'd been working on him, and he was like, I'm retired, I don't play drums anymore.
And he had a lot of rust on his hands.
Yes. So he said, no, to be fair, yes, there was some conditions he was dealing with. And finally, like one of the songs on the 3rd solo record, he cut some parts of a track, and I think that cracked the nut for
just set my phone up in the pool room and recorded like 30 seconds of a groove, and that made it on the record.
Yeah. And then that evolved into so I finished those 2 records. So it was that one, and then I did another one of this ambient kind of stuff, and already knowing, and Chris was, we had been talking a lot about new sounds and the kind of music that was inspiring us is really a lot of ambient synthesizer based stuff, but like really deep, trippy kind of stuff. And that began to turn into a conversation about, why don't we do something like this? And why don't we think of a clever way that we can do it using technology and remote working? And this was COVID too, had come up. And then
huge creative boom over COVID for a
right.
lot of musicians, yeah.
And it began to make sense to that this was, and I was pushing that. This, we are Glueleg. Let's make this a Glueleg record, and we have enough background with knowing that we can make it whatever we want, and it's likely going to end up sounding like us. But let's challenge ourselves. Let's take some risks, and let's not look backwards at all with the intention of it, and see what we get at. And so we put the foot on the gas for at least a year and a half of writing and developing. And of note, Chowder was part of that whole experience for the first, what would you say, Chris, 6 months at least?
Oh, if that sounds like
maybe that was too long. And then he kind of went MIA, so we just kept going. And next thing we heard, so that brought us to making this record, and as we got closer to finishing it, and it is this double LP, it's 20 songs, almost 2 hours of music, all in. We decided that it was going to be all instrumental, and the instrumentation was going to be all not just drum kit, but drum surfaces and all sorts of colors that were all acoustic. And then from my side, it was going to be a lot of synthesizers, but one particular synthesizer, this cool 70s one that I bought used, and then Chapman stick and some upright bass, and really
what was the synthesizer you use?
It's a Korg MS-20 from 1979. A bit of a
for all the nerds out there that want to know, because my close friend who he actually bought a whole bunch of synth hardware during COVID and started experimenting, and he made my intro song for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those were some parameters that we had put up creatively. And given that there's so many synthesizers and software and stuff, we decided to let's just hone it down to really getting all of the sounds out of a couple of different devices.
Sure.
And we had a cool creative,
makes it a little more consistent.
Exactly.
Yeah. And when I first heard the first track, what is it called? Aegis or Aegis?
The Aegis, yes.
Aegis, yeah. I heard right away Glueleg right in there. Like I knew it was you. Like it's crazy.
That's what and we Sarah and
old stuff in that track.
Yeah.
Sorry, Christian?
I certainly that would be the first song I think that would have a direct line back to the Heroic Doses.
Yeah, era. For sure. Yeah.
And but at the same time, it's the band in 2023.
Yeah.
So I think from so again, I was pretty reticent to get back into it. I was again. I thought, I'm never going to play to a level that I'm happy with and get back to where I was at, and then and I also had some issues with my hands, and so I thought, there's no way I'm not doing this again, and I never even thought about it, to be honest. I just started doing other things. I started to get more involved in photography, and then just drawing and painting and more that type of art, just something to, because there was, when I stopped music, obviously there was this vast creative void
for sure
I had to fill, and so I just found other things to kind of allow me to just get that out.
Yeah, for sure. It's same with me. I also am a little bit of a musician, a little bit out of practice because I live in an apartment building now. So doing the podcast is now my creative
There you
thing.
go.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta have something. There's got to be something that you're passionate about, something that you love doing.
To
And
balance your
absolutely.
body and spirit and mind, right?
So I'm forever grateful to Carlos. And also I moved out of the city. And that really is what allowed me to actually set up, a set of drums and actually sit down and play them. Where I was in the city, it just wasn't possible.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
and all that. So this did allow me to have the facilities to kind of set up gear and be able to play. But it was so when we moved in, I set up a kit that I've been dragging around for 15 years, thinking I'm never even going to ever look at it again. I set it up thinking that my boys might take to it, and they still haven't. Uh, but I kind of thought, well, I used to know how to work one of those things. And then with Carlos kind of just chipping away, and then I thought it was actually that little bit we talked about earlier, that 30-second recording, that probably made up my mind because I really enjoyed it. And then when I heard it on his what he did with it,
Right.
I thought it was really clever, and I really liked the track, and there wasn't a lot of, and I don't mean this to sound snobby or anything like that, but I was not interested. If there was any sort of musical project that would get me inspired and want to play, it was what Carlos was doing. I wasn't interested in big rock and
Sure. Yeah.
just straight ahead.
But you
Cars.
do definitely sound like a very much different drummer on this album. Like it sounds like you have a lot of fluidity in your drumming now instead of just like bashing the kit. You're much more like jazz oriented, if I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think there's some things that I was stronger at back then, obviously, when I was younger. I mean, I played with, a lot of power and speed. I always worked on that, and technique and rudiments and stuff like that. And again, there's most rudiments I can't really play because of this neurological condition I have with my hands. And some people might see or hear the record, and so that's the stuff that I've really had to work around this deficiency that I have. And it's like, okay, what can I do? Like I ended up having I played with Saga. I played with them for a couple of years, like the Canadian prog rock band Saga.
Oh
And
yeah, I love Saga. Yeah.
but Saga and that was a dream gig for me, because I mean that was just on a level that I'd never been on before.
You were
And
probably a huge fan before you entered the band.
I saw them when I was in grade 9 in high school. Like I
Yeah.
saw them, and I was just like, holy shit, these guys. And I had, a few of their albums back in the day, probably more than a few. Yeah, I was a fan. So anyway, got got the gig, and ended up kind of hanging in for a couple of years, and ended up recording an album with them, and doing a bunch of tours, and mainly in Europe. So that was great. But their original drummer, his sound was this like 16th notes on hi-hats. Like that was his, and it was a really cool sound. So it was, he always had that.
Yep.
That's one of the things when I try to do, if you saw me just do that now, I can't really do it, because this hand just starts flopping around like this. I could
Right.
go, but just to go slowly, there's a glitch there. So I don't do that. There's none of that on this record. But in Saga, I was forced to do that on every song almost, because that was that drummer's sound. So I'm just taping sticks to my gaff taping them in my hands, just so I could kind of hold on to it. I was using all wrist and arm, and it was just it was brutal. So anyway, that was sort of I'm done. I can't play anymore. I'm so I told the guys like I'm gonna leave the band. I can't do this anymore. And I just kind of walked away like, well, that was the end of that, part of my life. And that was my whole life till that point, right? So it was pretty devastating to have to just kind of walk away after you've been working towards something for
sure. How long ago was that, Christian?
2005.
Did you record an album with them?
I did. Yeah, I did. An album, it's called Network.
Okay.
And yeah, so this is interesting. Is one of the reasons is why I really wanted to. There had to be vinyl, a vinyl version of this record. I didn't want it to just be streaming because I'd done streaming before. Been on CDs. I've got an old cassette of Clodhopper. So the only format and it was vinyl, and I grew up listening to vinyl. So I thought, well, this is going to be really special. My first record, official vinyl record, is going to be this Glueleg. And then just before, well, I guess probably 6 months ago, I was at a music store flipping through, and the S section, and there was Saga had released Network just then on vinyl. So I was looking at, oh shit, this is my
Awesome.
So that was my first vinyl record. But this is obviously
works, eh?
Yeah.
This is
we're always there.
I saw you making reels lately about unboxing your shipments and going through the vinyl, the booklet, and the beautiful turquoise vinyl. Oh, it looks amazing. Is that all your artwork, Carlos, or Christian?
That's all Christian. So
that's all Christian. Okay.
He's a very prolific visual artist. So this guy on the front, which I'll remind him is to be my
the cinder block with all the song titles on it.
Yeah.
Gifts.
That was just a promo piece for just the tracks, like a track listing. And when I showed Carlos, he said, "Hey, check this out." I was just going to post it on Facebook or something, and it was like, that's the album cover.
Yeah, this that's been all corroded. That was sitting in the lake right at his place, and he made it into this thing. So it's an actual physical sculpture.
That's awesome.
It's got to get to Carlos's place at some point.
And then
I'm loath to give it up now.
No, you give it to me.
Good where it is right now.
Spring present, remember?
The album title Horror Vacui, I looked it up. I think it seems to mean like the fear of emptiness.
Correct.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that?
It's an Italian expression for an artist. It's sort of fear of leaving space on a canvas or
okay.
So yeah, it's like never knowing, I guess, when something's done, when you're creating something, and is it finished, or because there's a little bit I could add here, or there's a little, so, and I think that there was a lot of that going on with this record too. Was really like we were pulling back a lot of stuff at the end, right, Carlos? Were we?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, we were. We would realize, okay, so because we were just let's just throw more, and there's layers and layers and layers, and drum, all kinds of drum overdubs and synth overdubs and more guitars and basses, and then it was like, okay, let's start to peel away layers and get and just slip it back a bit. Yeah. So there is that. Oh, we have to fill up every little iota of space, or with some sonic sound, or
but at some point it's gotta be a finished product, right? And then there's always that thing in the back of your mind, probably like, fuck, we should have put this in there or put that in there, and that's probably a never-ending thing for an artist, I would imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think it varies from individual to individual, but I think that all musicians, artists, you listen back to what you've done, and I mean, I used to always just beat myself up over my performances and think, I could have played that better. Why
Right.
do that, or
You heard a fuck up there and a screw up here, and you're like, shit.
my
Now
own
it's
worst.
immortalized.
Yes.
And so
That's an age old artist story though. I've heard it from a lot of musicians. Like, fuck, I can't listen to my own music because I always catch the mistakes and I can't handle it. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. We were really conscious of that throughout our process. And
our own worst critics.
yeah,
Yep.
you know, I'm not afraid to say that, the technology is an amazing thing these days. And if you know how to wield these fine scalpels, digital scalpels, you can really deal with some of the stuff, and particularly if you know what you're looking for. So I'm thankful of our process being so thorough, but also our intention to craft it to be very exacting allowed us to deal with some of that, as you're saying, Dave. So, this age old, and us making many records going, yeah, what about that? How do we sort that out? And it was really just another layer of editing, of really listening to it critically, and then having the opportunity to go in there and wiggle things around, if you will.
Yeah, well, you guys weren't on anybody's particular timeline except for your own, so
Yeah,
Right.
you're not playing some studio. I remember when we recorded Spot Hopper. I mean, we were in phase 1 for let's say a week, get all the drums done, and so there wasn't a lot of time. When you hear records like Fleetwood Mac's Rumors taking 2 years to
right.
make, and it's just straight ahead, just for, I mean, perfect.
That's because of the coke.
Well, that was part of it, yeah. But it's just, it's got to be perfect, and it was. But that takes time, and obviously, certainly, if you're working back like in those days, you had to have a big bag of money behind you, and
Yeah,
that was your that would just kind of bankroll that. And so, but anyway, we have this technology now that would allow me to, you know, um, I had to start from ground zero with Pro Tools, like everybody. But but once I got the hang of just recording performances, I could just go over it and over it and over it, and just kind of fine tune my own performances, listen back, hear where things are, change this part, or you tend to rush at this part. And so it was just great to be able to, you just kind of have the time, and I'm in my own environment, and I could just really kind of lock in with the click track, and then listen back. And if I didn't like it, just scrap it and do it again.
sure.
And then if you're close and you want to just kind of just fine tune it a little bit, then you can get into some of the other, editing options. But yeah, I think that the performances that we capture, we just have the luxury of having our own spaces and our own recording systems, and we have all the gear we could ever want, really. Imagine there's some synths Carlos, you might like. There's the big
There.
with all the plugins and stuff. So, and then we could take our time, because again, this record it was probably a year and a half. Now, that's not us locked away. I mean, we've got jobs, we've got families, we've got
Sure.
this life. So this is when we do it, right? Weekends, at night, whatever. But yeah. So anyway, just to say, I'm forever grateful to Carlos for just kind of pushing and not really giving up, and because it's just reconnected me to my old life, but without a lot of the anxiety and
Sure.
negativity surrounding it back then. This is more of, and it's not even just fun. It's not, okay, now I can just have fun. It's, I can actually just be really creative and really try and craft something unique. It's not about just the prog technical wizard stuff. It was just, let's just try and create our own sound. And but with sort of a thread back to the old days, and that's where we just did on an EP that we released. It's sort of the the little brother to Horror Vakui,
Peaches and Regalia.
is in Regalia. And Carlos said to me back just before he left the band and Chowder came in, he said, what if we do a cover of Peaches and Regalia? This was going back to like 94, 95. And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. And then
Oh, you were talking about doing that back then.
yeah.
Okay,
So
cool.
back together.
It's like near perfect too.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. That was
Challenge. Scary one too, right? Really quite intimidated.
Yeah.
I don't know how we would have done it back then.
For anybody that doesn't know, Peaches and Regalia is a Frank Zappa song, and incredible piece, and it fits right in, I believe, with Horror Vakui and Colossus with Clay Feet.
Yeah, that was again. We just had so many songs. This was, I think, our original intent was just to make a record, and then it turned into, well, we have so many songs. What are we going to drop? But we didn't want to drop any of them. In fact, we had too many songs for a double record. So okay, well, let's do an EP. So, yeah, and there's more coming. We're
That's awesome. I didn't see, like, because I didn't realize you guys were working on an EP, and it hit in my algorithm. I'm like, oh shit, another new album. I didn't know it was an EP, but I was like, oh shit, this is awesome. What are some of your guys' personal favorite tracks, both of you, on Horror Vakui? I know it's like picking a favorite son or daughter.
I love Zero Day. Again, I like them all. I'm really really happy with everything. I don't think there's and people that have gotten this and really put the time into it and have listened to it have come back and commented and just said, holy fuck, this album is amazing. Like,
yeah, it totally is.
From like it's a journey from start to finish.
It paints, every song paints a different picture in my mind.
Yeah, but there's a connection to all of them as well. I think sonically, a lot of those sounds, because although we're bringing in different things for different tracks, there's still that. I think you can tell that it's.
And each one of them has an accompanying full-size thumbnails, of course, but a full-size original piece of art that Chris created that is inspired of, or the artwork inspired the music of the song of the same name.
And for the live show that we're gonna do in live shows, we're gonna do in 2024. We're gonna have a visual setup as well, and you're gonna see like that artwork kind of as backdrops and
awesome. For each track.
Yeah, it's gonna be very cool. I mean, it's a lot of work. So that's why we're kind of not rushing to just let's do a show,
right.
It's got to be pretty, we want it to be pretty magical. It's just like the first show,
aesthetically and sonically pleasing.
Yeah, exactly. Like sonically phenomenal. So we are booking a venue, and we will be the only band playing that night at that venue, because we want the stage for the day.
Well, I think that's kind of deserving for coming back after so many years and doing a double album. I think you deserve the stage.
Yeah, we better come up.
Well, also to pull off this record, I mean, the gear that we're going to have on stage is going to like fill a fucking good sized stage, because it's going to be double drum rigs. There's there's going to be multiple synth setups,
electric bass, Chapman stick.
Intense. So anyway, really fun.
Have you guys ever heard of another band called Zombie, Zombi?
No.
Okay, it's also a duo. No lyrics as well, just pure instrumentation, instrumentals. And so when you guys came out and announced that you're a duo now and you releasing a double, it reminded me of Zombie right away because they're very proggy as well. You guys want to check them out? They're fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Zombi.
Pardon?
How's it spelled, Dave?
Zombi.
Zombie.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys will dig it. I think they're from New York, if I'm not mistaken.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. All right.
Yes.
Steve Moore and Anthony Patera on drums.
That's it. That's them.
Yeah.
And
yeah, listen to that later.
Steve Moore does the bass and the keyboards, and just like you, Carlos, like a lot of the technical stuff. And then Patera is the drummer, and he sounds a lot like Neil Peart.
Oh, okay.
Film score composers John Carpenter, electronic music artists such as Tangerine Dream and Vangelis, and progressive rock bands like King Crimson and Genesis. Wait a minute.
Oh, are you serious? Come on.
What does that sound like?
Wait a minute. Oh, and they're ahead of us too. They've been making records since.
Checking a few boxes. Did they tour?
Yeah, they've been going for quite a bit. Yeah.
And where would they play?
Their music sounds a lot different than yours because it's more. It's not quite as layered as your music is. But yeah, I'm sure you'll fucking dig it for sure.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm thinking the guys right now. Yeah. The drummer's a lefty.
Right on. So favorite. I'll just answer that question to keep the ball rolling here.
Yeah.
Favorites are, if I were to choose, I mean, I keep going back to them. Is Hugo and the Fish. I just love everything about that song. To me, I think it's like one of the most honest and authentic to what we are, where we're at and what we're intending. And it's really a piano, an upright bass, and drums, and just maybe a little bit of synthesizer in there. So it's quite the jazz inspired. It certainly has diminished chords and some jazz kind of stuff. And Chris's patterns are kind of jazz-like. But I think, to me, that one feels really, really close to what we were aiming for, and in a real refined way. There's a refinement to it. Sure. And the other one I would say would be the Ballad of Audrey Munson, which is just haunting.
Who does the vocals on that?
Chris can take that one.
Okay.
You remember a band called Sully? They were around in the 90s.
Sully, no.
Sully, yeah. An alt rock band. Actually, I missed them back in the day, but became a huge fan after meeting the singer who lives out near where I do, and we've become friends. And I remember
Becky Gainsforth.
Becky Gainsforth is her name, and she. I remember hearing her. So where did I hear? Oh yeah, she said, yeah, just there's a few tracks on YouTube. They don't have any CDs or anything out right now. I mean, I asked her. She says, yeah, they're somewhere in my attic or something. I'll get you, a copy. But that's yet to happen. But so anyway, I listened to what was available on YouTube, and she just had the perfect voice that I was hearing in my head, that, like she sounds sort of like, the Cocteau Twins, Lush, Elizabeth Fraser, Dead Can Dance, that kind of thing. And I remember calling Carlos and said, man, I found the voice for Nina. Like she's the one. I initially asked Michael Sadler from Saga if he would sing that, which would have been quite different. I would love to have heard what he would have done with that, but he had a bunch of other. He said, "Yeah, man, whatever, just let me know." And it just didn't happen, and he got really busy with a bunch of other projects he was doing. And anyway, reached out to Becky. And she's like, well, I don't know. I don't sing anymore. It was the same thing with me, right? And I'm
not a drummer anymore. That's in my past.
Like, really the perfect ambassador to enlist talent, Chris, with this backstory now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just gently just coaxed her to just said, listen, you'll have right of refusal if you don't like it. You just say nope, that's not, just hit erase. But I think she really enjoyed it, and well, she did, because she came back to sing three other tracks.
And that
As
was
well.
on Nina.
Yeah, so that was the first song. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
more
beautiful
it
song.
is. Yeah, it's gorgeous, and
Yeah, and she's on Zero Day.
got me.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Ballad of Audrey Munson. I think that's it. 3 tracks.
Zero Day. Soft Power.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's another good one.
Yeah, I love that one. That's one of my favorites. I think that one's very unconventional.
That was an early one too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And I like that there's not really a straight groove, or it's just sort of a broken up kind of drum pattern and a broken up synth pattern, and some really great bass playing at the end, and then Becky's voice just, yeah. So it's a great track. I really do think that people that certainly liked the older band, but that are like, again, I'm not saying progressive rock, but just art rock, like Stereolab and some harder edge bands that if they just put time in the record, I think a lot of people would really enjoy it. And that's from people that I respect their opinions musically, people I've been friends with for a long time, that I know wouldn't just blow sunshine up my ass just because, well, I can't really sing it. Like, it's genuine, they're just like, holy shit, like, I can't stop playing this. It's great. You
Yeah,
guys really nailed
This is a great
well.
album to put on in the background to do whatever you're doing, and also to just sit there and put the
Listen.
headphones on, smoke a fucking joint, and just like pick it apart and love it. It's amazing.
That is the perfect album, having both those things,
And like my favorite tracks are switching now. At first it was Neuroeconomics,
yeah.
and now like Emerson's Elephant came out at me now, and it was like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
And
that's Jeremy Taggart.
that one.
Yeah, Jeremy Taggart and myself. I'm on the left channel. He's on the right channel.
Okay, I was going to ask you where Jeremy Taggart was in this.
Yeah, so he came over here, and we just had 2 kits set up and just kind of banged it out, and it was super fun, and it was great to kind of reconnect. So I hadn't seen him in a long time, and he's such a powerhouse. Man, rooms.
Our Lady Peace for me was, again, when Naveed came out, it was like one of my favorite albums, and in my opinion, that band will never be able to top that album. Just the sound, especially the drums. Like, it was, the drums on that album were fucking phenomenal.
He was about 17, I think. He was just like a kid when that came out. So yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, he was one of those drummers that played in they were a great band. They had great songs. But he created something that I think his drums added something quite unique to what would, I think, be considered a certainly more conventional rock band.
Right.
Really kind of nailed the radio programmers formula, and they had much success, and it was completely warranted. They could do one thing that I think that we didn't really have a good concept of back then, was just writing a song that had really, kind of great verses and great choruses, and
right.
I don't think we were ever intending that, though.
No, well, we weren't really. But again, that you look back and you kind of think, well, that you kind of had to have that to get on the radio, something we were lamenting earlier on, that, you know, it's just that sound. We weren't radio, didn't fit.
Friendly.
Yeah, friendly.
I don't know though. Like some of their songs were like pretty fucking conventional, I would say, but
Yeah, like
they weren't at the same time. Like Mrs. Petrie is one of my favorite Glueleg songs of all time.
oh really?
Like, yeah, just the bass line, like that's it starts off with that bass line. It's just like the harmonics and the doo-doo-doo-doo, you know, it's like, and it's like holy shit. And then Ruben's vocals are like they're like kind of soft at first, but near the end of the song, it picks up, and it's like he's just kind of like the beast comes out of Ruben on that song at the end, and it's just an all around fucking awesome song. And the video is fucking hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. I remember
You guys are all like naked, half naked in the bed with Mrs. Petrie.
I don't know what they were thinking. I was glad I was gone by then. Now let's get half naked.
Bruce was the director.
Together with no girls. It was the 90s.
What else resonates with you off the new record? I'm interested to hear. I mean, I know what I like it, but like, so you said
New record. What's that one? That one track. Oh, Proto Enlightenment Salon. That was another one. Holy shit!
nice
It totally made me think of like some kind of being in like a space station and walking through like a mall kind of thing. It was kind of weird.
Gilliam Still kind of a
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, like every song paints a picture in my head, and it's cool how you have your own art style to go along with every piece of music. But for me, it's painting something else. Like it could inspire me if I was a painter to paint another picture that you would not maybe jive with, you know, but it comes in my own head.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
yeah.
You know, it's that's just my concept, and done in my style. And again, it's just a creative outlet, you know, and that's something I was doing before I got back into music, and I thought, well, why don't we just keep, you know, I'm not going to stop doing the visual art, keep going with that, and just sort of combine the two. And I think that's going to come to, you know, great effect live, you know,
Oh, for sure.
put off the way we intend to.
You guys had Edwin on as well?
No, I played in Edwin.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw like in the I was looking up something on Horror Vakui, and it was showing all the guest artists. And for some reason Edwin popped in there.
No, so there was Jeremy, of course, Becky, Jim Gilmore, and Ian Crichton from Saga are playing on a couple of tracks, a synth and guitar. And Gord Vines, a drummer, percussionist, he's like a member of the band now. He's going to be part of the live.
Oh, okay. How many people are you going to have in the live show?
There'd be 4 and maybe 5. There might be, so, you know, like we've got to get, again, this is going to be me having to, come on, Becky, come on out. We're doing
right.
Sing a couple of songs, you know.
Crack that shell that's been over your back.
Already like, well, I don't know. I'll think about it. So that's a good start. It's not enough.
You can send her this podcast when I'm done with it.
Yeah. And yeah, so we're still putting that together. We're still kind of putting the live show together. And so there will be some people probably coming on and off the stage to play different things, you know, but the core, me, Carlos, Gord, and actually, I guess we can announce this now. Carlos's son Felix, who's a music producer, and he's going to be playing in the band as well.
Awesome.
So going to bring some youth into this this project. You know, he's
Make daddy
good.
proud.
Yeah.
So,
I love it. I love it. When can we expect the vinyl to be released?
very soon.
We are at the last stages of assembly and putting together our own web store solution and a bit of a promotional plan around it. Certainly hoping before Christmas time that this will all be live and available for orders. And there's going to be the double vinyl and t-shirts that are coming in, Horror of a Gooey t-shirts.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Any chance of getting a signed copy?
Absolutely.
Fucking awesome, man. Guys, it's been so cool to sit and chat with you guys. It's like I've been telling all my coworkers, I'm like, dude, like I'm so excited, you know. And it's just been an honor and a pleasure. Can you tell my audience where they can find your music? It's on most streaming platforms, I would assume.
It is, yeah, yeah. So, Carlos, I know Apple, Spotify, and that's about it. But Carlos, I think it went out to a bunch of other.
Yeah, a total of 22 different streaming platforms around the world, pretty standard for this kind of digital distribution, but the big ones are Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, YouTube Music, Pandora. And yeah, and I think those are then there's other ones into Asia's and Russia, but basically those platforms. And there's a link tree. So if you go to
There we go.
page, so you can just go to Facebook, Glueleg, or Instagram, or glueleg.com. There'll be a link there that takes you to a link tree that then you can choose which platform to go to.
That's the best way.
That's really
if I could just post one link in the show notes, that's the best thing.
Glueleg.
One option back in the old days, it was go to the record store and buy it.
Yeah.
Now all of that gobbledygook you just laid out there, that's the way it's website, and then you click on this link and it'll take you over
It's beyond Christian's old behaviors. I have one last question, and I asked Chowder where the name Glueleg came from, and he's like, I have no fucking idea. You'd have to ask Chris and Carlos that. And I said, and my comment was, oh, we were just eating a pound of mushrooms one day, and
Well, I can share that anecdote, and I think it's pretty cool that you asked that, because I don't think anybody has ever, or certainly since the 90s, or maybe we used to.
It's a very distinct name, and it's very odd, and it makes you there's nothing I can think of that would be a glue leg.
Well, I think that is the going story. Now I do remember telling this is it was just a couple of words that we mashed together with the intention of, and I think it was inspired from something Roger Waters said once about, like Pink Floyd, so Glueleg is a bag, and there's nothing inside of it. And so it means nothing. But as we continue to create and put things inside of this bag, it starts to have meaning. And that's really what I think the idea was. How can we come up with something that, doesn't have a meaning, because we're going to apply that to it.
That's the concept for the next record. We have to do that. The
Glueleg self-titled
rock opera. Did we just do it? Did we just do? We just filled the bag.
Self-titled Glueleg album next.
Oh, I do like that. Yeah, no. So the focus now is going to be, and we'll just leave with that. Looking forward, is going to be the live show coming up, and we do have another bunch of songs that we're going to release an EP of.
Mm-hmm.
But we're getting really interested in Dolby Atmos and releasing in this new digital format that is very immersive, and I think it's going to work really well for this kind of ambient, real listeners, audiophile kind of art music.
Sure.
So that's what we're pointing into. moving forward.
So when they put it on their 3D headset, they'd be like, "Holy shit!"
And one last thing, the Horror of a Cooey record was mastered at Abbey Road Studios by this guy, Christian, what's his last name, Carlos? Christian Wright?
Christian White, yeah, famously mastered the majority of Radiohead's albums.
Kid A. He did
Oh,
Kid
wow.
A. He did pretty much
Yeah.
Bullet's entire catalog. Like they kind of have these shopping lists of producers and who they've worked with. You can pick the guy that did Ed Sheeran and John Mayer and all these people. And then this guy, Radiohead, Kid A, and again, all Bjork stuff and Massive Attack and all these great albums. And we've got to get that guy. So he did we sent one track over, like, let's just test it and see, right? Because we don't want to spend all this money and have it not really make much of a difference. And when we got the first track back, we were like, yeah, just send over everything. He did a fantastic job. So the record sonically sounds, of course, Carlos's mixing and production work was just top notch. And then this was just icing on the cake that just really shined right up. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's a beautiful package, is beautiful, and it sounds fantastic. So we're super, super proud of it.
Indeed, it does, and you should be, because art is eternal, it's timeless, and this is a very timeless album. And thank you for making it. You made a Glueleg fan very happy. So, and I thank you so much for your guys' time. And I look forward to reconnecting with you guys in the future and probably getting you back on sometime. And yeah, much success to you guys. I can't wait to see a live show. That's for sure.
Yeah. You're on the list.
Yeah,
Cool, man.
And thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. And peace to you guys, and looking forward to the future.
Cheers.
Have a good one.